they're missing the connection. So here's a perfect example. I was talking maybe about a month ago to a 9-year-old or 10-year-old and asking her how things were, doing school online. And she, and she was so diplomatic. Our children do cover us a lot. So she didn't really want to, say anything negative. And I wasn't trying to pull anything negative out, but I just wanted her to answer me. But then when she did respond, she said, "Oh, it's all right." But the way she said it, I knew she wanted to say more. And then she said, "But the teachers are so mean." And so that was just the most recent thing. And something in terms of how we communicate to our children may be very different from our intention. A lot of my most recent work was with Pearl Cone High School. Our church is directly across from Pearl Cone. And so we had the privilege weekly before the pandemic of feeding football players and cheerleaders. And so we engaged with the young people. I engaged a lot with the teenagers weekly. And that would be one of the things that they would assess. They could read which teachers loved them, and they could read which teachers didn't. And so it was more than just fulfilling a curriculum obligation or achieving the standards and doing the testing. Our young people want to connect to love and humanity. And those are just two examples of places where I've heard that, where the young people said that. And I just wanted to communicate the importance. And having been in the classroom myself, I'll just say this part. I was in the classroom for about 30 years. And then about 20 years, I've been on the side of community activism and ministry, and not directly in the classroom, but always working with young people through the community and summer programs. So I do stay in touch. And those are just some of the things that I hear from our young people, that they can read us and they know what's genuine and what's not.
Thank you.
Did that fulfill what you're wanting me to expand on a little bit? Okay, great. Thank you.
I love the way you called that, the children using their protest voice.
Oh, and that again, I'm just sharing with you all what I've learned. And I am a researcher, so I do read too. But our young people really do, they really do communicate. So what I was thinking was that, and again, having been, with children, so I worked directly with children in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s in the classroom, and then in the 2000s and 2010s in the community, from the approach of the community and tutoring. But one of the things that I've learned, what we would call discipline problems and behavior problems, I began to think. And then I realized that's their protest, that something is not right. And that this is the only way they know. And so some would be, we all have met the child who won't say anything. They just tighten up and they're not going to say nothing. I don't care what you try to do, until somehow they feel like you are really with them. And then they might open up a little bit. That's a protest. Then you have those who are very clear and will let you know straight up they didn't like what you said and what you did, and they will use it in whatever language they've learned, and it might be some 4 letters words. That's protest. This is my theory. Now, this is my theory. And then there would be those who clown and distract because whatever is happening is not reaching them. It may be a cover-up, or it may be just not challenging. It's protest. So that's theory. That's my theory. I don't think I've read anything on that one. But that's my theory, where they are communicating to us that what we're doing is not meeting their need. And they're saying, please help, let's change. Freedom, liberation, meet my need. Does that speak, Alicia, to
Absolutely. And as a teacher, being on the receiving end of that, right, I have the choice of how I'm going to receive that.
Yeah.
Am I going to take that as a message, or am I going to feel attacked and escalate?
Yes.
Right, which is never the right way to go.
And I think one of the things that has happened, back to literature, what the literature and the educational focus could be, we're also taught that this is a discipline problem, you see. So we've been conditioned to see this as, this child has a problem. Let me find out what this child's problem is.
Mm-hmm.
And also we've been socialized. This is anti-racism and anti-Blackness kind of focus. We've also been taught that especially brown and Black boys, you know, and girls, and maybe people who come from another country have some deficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
And so just out of a programming, we go to that problem element. And then our literature has taught us, okay, well, how do we help with this part of the discipline problem or that part of the discipline problem? And so I think that gets back to our focus even here, reshifting our thinking, our starting place, so that when we approach it, we will see it out of a new light.
Yeah.
And we will be able to handle it a little differently, because we're not starting with, oh, this is a problem. But no, this is a cry.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a cry to me, and I'm in a position to help. Now I need to do what I need to do to be equipped to help that child. But I can't even help them if I'm not open to recognizing that this
Mm-hmm.
is a protest cry
Mm-hmm.
for some help, for some liberation, for some righteousness, for some justice.
Thank you.
Miss Freeman, my name is Latrice. I
Hi,
just
Latrice.
wanted to do a follow-up question on what you're talking about, kind of not related to the video, but as someone who has seen children in different decades,
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
as
You talking about, I'm looking at your picture. You're not talking about you.
no,
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
no, ma'am. I've been in education probably about 16 years now.
Okay.
So, but I have
Wonderful.
seen the difference between my early years and even
Yes.
recent years. Whereas when you talk about the balance and even showing, or as I've heard the term, nasty nice, they want you to be nice, but they want you to know that the students want to know that you care and that you love them.
Yes.
I've also seen where there's a change but when I was growing up, you respected adults, period. It was just, that was just the norm. My parents never believed me. They always believed the teacher. And now I see there's a shift where it's like you actually have to earn the respect
Yeah.
of the students. Can
Yeah.
you speak to how the protest voice, how do you navigate a protest voice when it's they're showing up different? Their philosophy is not respect on onset. It's like, you got to earn my respect. How, or do you have any tools to navigate, since you've seen so many, you've been able to see the different transitions,
Yeah.
students in 70s.
And yes, yes. And you are really truly on, my dear. Thank you. Because there is a major transition. You can see it in your 16 years. Imagine what I've been able to see in my 50 years with being in the education system. And there is some major difference. But here's the other thing that we have to keep in mind. Our children are products of culture. They're products of our society. And so these changes are reflections of our culture and the impact of the culture on families. That's one of the things we really say. And it is so true. Everything's about the home. But the home is not isolated. The home is a product of culture, part of a racist, capitalistic, I've learned a new word, neoliberal system, which really produces what we're seeing. So one of the things that I still think, I'm what you call a foundation person. I always like to just, let's deal with making sure we have good foundation, because out of good foundation, you're able to be flexible and wise to deal with the different variables of that protest voice. So one of the things is basically understanding the foundation, because if you do that, it just helps your eyes. I've been looking a lot in my own reading and meditation over the past couple of days. It's about this importance of opening blinded eyes. Because see, when you can see things clearer, you can deal with it more clearly. And one of the things that we have to do is move away from just the limited understandings that we may have had about the children and about our approaches to do it. So that's a foundational piece. And so back to the tangible things for the children today. And I heard you saying it several times in what you said, they're looking for to see that you really care about them. Now, I'm sure you found this out too, that when you really care about them, that nice nasty is a whole different kind of way. That you can, and I would call the nasty, well, they call it nasty, but what we're doing is we're setting a standard. We're saying, I'm not going to allow you to hurt yourself or hurt other people in an environment. If that's what you mean by nasty. Now, if we mean by nasty, ugly comments,
Oh,
and nasty
no,
faces,
no.
and I know you didn't, but I want to clarify because someone said they'd never heard the term before. So, so I don't know if I'm assuming I've heard the term, and I'm assuming you mean they'll call you nasty because you're trying to really discipline them and help them to do what's right, and help them to be on the right path. But if your goal is really helping a child you love, one of the things that I've heard for years, you can't teach someone you don't love. So back to even the children of this generation who have experienced so much, double down from what the children 50 years ago that I would have taught have experienced within a society and a culture, where we say things have gotten better, but things have been really challenging these past 50 years. And so the children who have come out of this culture are really testing, but also they have so many other distractions that take their time and interest and teach them. And so that means it really is upon us as educators, whether in the classroom, at school, or the church, or the community group, when we're in these settings where we're teaching children, it does require understanding this different dynamic. And I know a lot of people say then making certain adjustments to even how we try to approach them, even in terms of our learning, that they are highly stimulated now. And so that means, they're sitting and talking to children, it's just not going to work. It just isn't. So that's another thing, the heart connection, but then also being wise about history and culture and these variables that affect them, but then also being aware of just what are different ways that I can relate and use what my pedagogy and all of the wonderful things you all have in education now to reach children at a level that does stimulate them and motivate them to go beyond where they are to something new. I hope that touched on what you're saying a little bit.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for asking, dear. Thank you for your 16 years. That's good.
Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Freeman. My name is Victoria, and hello. And I was wondering if you could share your thoughts about a few of us here are teaching on the lower end of the grade level, so pre-K, first and second grade. And so wondering kind of what your thoughts are and what you think about balancing anti-racist teaching. I think in the video we watched, you talked really powerfully about like the systems that are in place and, like these big concepts. And so trying to think about how do you see that working in sort of younger grades?
Oh, I think it works so powerfully. So one of the things that here would be an example. I know Ibrahim Kendi even wrote the children's book. And what I didn't realize until I think I made reference to it in the video about my participating in an anti-racism conference for my 7-year-old friend. It was a 1-minute conference. And that was there that I learned that his book was literally one of those hard, just one of them little hard preschool books. It's got only about 8 pages that usually just say Spot ran, Spot jumped, Spot laughed, Spot cried, Spot went to bed. But he put these anti-racism concepts within that type of 6-page book, so that my 7-year-old teacher was able to define what racism is, talk about the solutions to racism, and then give the challenge, and I like to say it again, by straightening up her back, lifting her head, stomping her foot, and saying, it is not about trying, that you have to use your voice and use your mind and take action and bring a change. So doesn't that then say that we can just talk to the children, that we can get books like that book that literally don't even tell the story but teach concepts? But then there are so many books that just teach the experience. And I remember, oh gosh, it probably was 20, or maybe it's 25, 30 years ago. See, because I have been in education so long, I've seen all of the different trends. But there was one little trend. I was in Boston at the time teaching. And one of the trends was we were learning how to use picture books to teach concepts about race and justice. So there's a lot of literature of how to do that. The key thing is it can be done, but here's something else. The children already are observing it. We just don't talk to them about it. So they have these wonderful ideas and figuring it. So let me just say this part. I don't know how much time I have on each one.
We've got like 1 minute.
All together? Okay.
Yeah, and there's
an example.
A little more in the chat. I don't know if we can even get to it. Any advice on fatigue, burnout, frustrations over the years? How do you keep going?
Oh, see, I believe in, I told you about foundation, spiritual foundation. I really have a solid understanding of a belief system. I believe that I'm a child of the Most High God. I'll call him Hallelujah, through his son, Jesus, Yahshua, by the power of the Holy Spirit. I believe in his word, and I really believe it's a lifeline. Now that's for me personally, and I'm a part of a belief system of a group of people who have that as a foundation. Many others have other foundations.
It looks like they're might whisk us away here.
Thank you for doing this work. Thank you for moving forward. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbs, so much.
They whisked us away.
Okay, that was Lemuel. Okay.
Yes. So hi everybody. So good to see you all here.
Do you know already, Alicia, how many people have something to ask?
Well, we're moving to our next room, and I will try to, in any way I can, follow up with you with the questions.
So kind of let me know when I need to. I'll just be a little short because I don't know how much time I have.
Well, I can give you the 2-minute warning. Sorry, Natalie, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we have 20 minutes, so we'll be aiming to start this chunk together at 12:10.
Okay. What time is it?
A warning. Right now it's 11:50.
So I'll give you the 2-minute warning at like 12:07.
Okay. I guess the thing I'm also asking, can you see how many people are in line to ask a question so that I don't have to, so that I won't elaborate?
I will watch the chat for you. And if you want me to give you do you want me to give you a signal? Wrap it up.
You got some more people. Like, look, if it's only one person, you can talk forever about what they want. But if people, well, let me introduce you.
This is our second session and our second group, and I am so happy to bring Miss Elois Freeman to you. And she is a community elder and a historian, educator of many, many years of experience with children and in ministry, and she has lots to share with us, lots of wisdom. So I won't talk any further. I would like to open it up to your questions. We did run a little short in our last session, so jump right in.
So I would just like to ask, I think we could all benefit from just a long history of seeing how this work has played out in Nashville. I'm really interested in how this work has manifested itself in this city, and I don't guess there's probably anybody with more wisdom about it than you. And so, like, that's a really open-ended question, but just sort of putting ourselves in this sort of historical moment.
Right.
And you have the history that leads up to this, and I don't think the rest of us really do. I would just love to sort of hear, you sort of freestyle on that for a couple minutes, if you don't mind. Thank you.
What's your name?
I'm Joel.
Hi, Joel. Thank
Hi.
you for the question, and you gave me a real high bar. So let me just go with what I do know. So I am a native Nashvilleian, grew up in what we call the segregated South. One of the things that I'd love to always point out, especially when people only have a knowledge of something from books and videos, that we think of that as a time of great horror and oppression, and yes, it was. But what I can say, and I always like to say, is that that was a truly time where we lived in a protected community. Those in that segregated space, I grew up in North Nashville, Jefferson Street area. And that was an area where in many ways, they tried to even keep you within that area, even when you got a little older. I remember my grandmother saying to my brother, why you all got to go out there or do that? Because the concept was, it is a cold, cruel world out there. You could be killed just because you're a Black male or a Black woman or being at the wrong place at the wrong time. We were protected. We also were taught about the important things of life. God first, and very important to get a good education, very important to just be good people, to live right and treat your neighbor right. One of the things we were another thing we were clearly taught was don't hate, that you can see very clearly that you're treated differently. You can see very clearly, and by the time I'm growing up in the 50s and the 60s, the protests now are emerging. And you can see very clearly, but we were taught, we could watch the dogs biting the children down in Birmingham and other places. We were taught, don't hate. So that was the kind of foundation we had. You were taught the value of community, sticking together and staying together, and going on to a higher education. That was the blessing of those who grew up in Nashville had. We had your Black schools. You had Tennessee State University. You had Fisk University. You had even American Baptist College, where even in segregated times, we could go to college. That was an amazing blessing for Black people. I learned that after I left. So that was a foundation time during the 50s. We began to see the shift with the protests, where things began to open up. And therefore, when I graduated from Fisk University with elementary education major, by the time that I graduated in the late 60s, then we had an opportunity to really go all over the world and all over the country. Whereas in prior generations, my mother's generation, all the people could do if they graduated from college was stay right here, maybe teach school, maybe work in the post office if you were a man. But so that's another transition that, as I saw, the opening up of opportunity to go to other places. People from my high school class went to Vanderbilt University, Perry Wallace, people who are from around here know of his name. That was from my class. So that was a big transition point. I left Nashville right after graduating from school and came back 30 years later. I was very sad with what I saw in my city when I came back. That what we see now is, whereas there was an assumption that you would graduate from high school and go on to college when I grew up, I saw my friends crying and praying to have their sons particularly get out of high school. Something had happened. I saw that my children, when I say my children, people who look like me, were the most likely to be suspended from school and drop out of school. Something happened. And so I saw those kinds of transitions. And now in this era, we see this wonderful knowledge about more openness of what really the problems are. We have educators like you who want to study and learn so that we can impact the children who are facing the culture now, a culture where you can watch protesters literally storm a Capitol building and walk away after killing people and trying to even kill the most high leaders in the country and walk away. And yet they've seen other protesters who look like them, who are beaten and put in jail at the drop of a finger. So when we talk about the anti-racism theme, we can talk to our children honestly in this era, and we can read about the history that I experienced. I don't know who else is talking. I don't know if that meets what you're kind of asking me for. You kind of asked me to do a little summary, so I tried to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I have a question. That was so interesting. Do you still live in North Nashville?
I do not live in North Nashville, but all my work and time is spent in North Nashville. My church is in North Nashville, and that's the base of my work. So all of my energy and time is in North Nashville.
Because I do a unit on African American communities in Nashville, and we go to Jefferson Street as part of the experience. And I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are on the changes that you're seeing in the area.
Where do you teach?
University school. So we do this whole like African American communities. We start at Fort Nagley and then Edge Hill, which is our school neighborhood, and then we go to Jefferson Street, and we see Mr. Washington with his museum, and go to Woodcuts, and we eat at Slim and Husky. Yeah, we do a whole like walking tour of Jefferson Street. But just curious to see what your thoughts are, because the changes are big.
Oh yes, the changes are big, and the changes are painful. Our home is still occupied by family. We're at 26th and Jefferson, where I grew up. My niece lives there. As a matter of fact, our home, that's right, this is the 101st year that it's been in our family. Our home was honored by the North Nashville exhibit. I don't know if you are familiar with that exhibit. I know if you're at university school, do you know of Amari Booker? I know he taught there.
Yeah.
Right. So Amari did a picture that was of our homestead. That was at the Fisk Museum last year with their North Nashville exhibit. And so we're honored about that. As I shared in the other comment to the other question, what the environment was like growing up. And even when I went to Fisk University, I walked to school every day. That was by the time the interstate had come in. And, and literally destroyed a community. And what I came to learn later is by deliberate intent of the state, what they call state violence, where you take the strength of Black communities all over the country and you deliberately chop them up to break people's resilience and more than anything to destroy people's wealth. And so think about it. That was 50 years ago. 50 or more years ago, and yet, so what is it, Maya Angelou's poem, and still we rise. So there is, there was an intent to hold on. Property values went down, so a lot of people, especially people of means, moved out. And up to now the properties are being purchased and gentrified. So it's a painful experience. I'm blessed that at our church invested or was blessed to have properties donated. So we really are working to provide housing and food for people who are in truly an area that has been neglected. And it's still, I was thinking about it, while we talk about the wonderful anti-racism and what we need to do, there are people who are hungry. There are people who don't have a place to stay. There are children at Pearl High School who live on somebody's couch because they don't want to move out. They want to go to their high school. These are the real things that we're facing. We got people who just out on the streets because they don't have a place to live. And at the same time, they're building properties that are for $800,000 and $300,000, where the people who've had families there can't even find a place. It's a sin and a shame. And so that's where we are now, but there's still life and vitality, and whatever wonderful people like you and those who are part of this and other places can do to reverse this trend, it has to be reversed. It has to be reversed. There's been a lot of death and oppression subjected on people who all they were trying to do is just live like everybody else. And they've been terrorized, but still we rise.
Thank you.
Did that answer what you're asking?
Yeah, because I don't know if you know Dojo. Do you know Dojo?
Mm-hmm.
So the muralist. Yeah, so he and I work really closely on this too. We actually did a mural together with our kids.
Oh,
but,
wonderful.
But we are, this year, we're like trying to change the, like kind of, I love the, and still we rise, because I told them, we teach about the redlining and the interstate and all that, but there's so much joy and richness in that area. And I just don't, I'm trying to find a way to, yes, the resistance, but also to kind of the joy to surface more.
You froze, and I really want to talk to you about that point.
Oh, you're freezing. Is she there?
Well, hold on a second.
Alicia, where you can?
I can hear you. Hello, there you are. You back?
I couldn't hear the young lady. Is she still there?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm here. I'm here.
You were freezing on that last part about what you wanted to do.
Well, this year, I just wanted to really focus on the joy also and the richness of the area. And we go to Fisk, like Fisk is a jewel, right? We spend some time at Fisk, the kids go and they walk around, they walk away so proud of their city, of things they never knew, right? Because it's almost like a hidden, like it's not exposed enough for people to know the stories. So anyway.
We should never leave out the victories and the triumphs.
Right. Yeah, true. And I just let me point out this part about the history part. So
okay, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Okay.
Okay. I'm actually
next
working
question.
with Mari Booker, where we are documenting the history of our church, which is 100 years old, and the community at large. I would love if there's some way we could talk and work together about some aspect of that to the young lady who was just on there before, because that's what we wanted to do, document artistically the beauty of this community over the past 100 years.
That's wonderful. I'll make sure you guys get each other's connections.
I would love to at least see if she has any interest in that.
Oh, totally interested. I'm like doing the happy dance over here. Yes. My email's in the chat. Oh, did I email?
Ms. Freeman, there's another question for you.
Okay,
I loved
great.
when you talked about bad behavior and students instead finding their protest voices. Can you chat a bit about what anti-racism discipline looks like? And we have about 5 minutes. Uh-oh. Elois, could you hear me?
I did. Oh yeah, when you said, oh, I didn't know what you needed to do.
I thought you were frozen.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I mean, I probably was, but that wasn't by the screen. I just was listening intently. Okay, ask that again.
Yes, ma'am. When you talked about bad behavior and students instead finding their protest voices, can you chat a bit about what anti-racism discipline looks like?
Yeah, so I think I'm stuck on anti-racism discipline, and so I don't know if I can speak to what anti-racism discipline looks like. But let me just kind of speak to my understanding, and the young lady can tell me if I didn't hit on what she's kind of needing. So if we think about this whole thing of anti-racism, what it is, where we identify, I love my 7-year-old's thing, that you see, she says, you see people, you don't see people, you see objects. But then when we went and looked at the book, she was saying what he's talking about is there are policies and practices that are behind these attitudes around hierarchy and stereotypes, etc. So I'm going to say that if we're dealing with discipline, under that kind of framework, from my understanding, let me say it from my understanding, is that it gets back to this whole thing of foundation. This, what we've been talking about throughout, that, oh, I heard someone say this. For oftentimes for Black people, people just want you to just be still and be quiet and just don't cause any problems. That's kind of the standard. Sit in your seat and be quiet. And that's why so many Black boys had problems in schools, because they had so much energy and it was perceived as problematic. So maybe one of the things is moving from this framing of an expectation that of what we expect of Black children. And one of the things that's very clear is that it is a different standard. Teachers do have a different expectation of what a Black child is supposed to do as a disciplined child and what a white child is supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And so we need to unpack that. That would be one thing I would say in an anti-racist framing, is to just check what my standard and expectation is. I've always believed this as a teacher, thank you, that I set the culture of my classroom. And so that if my children are all over the place and acting up and acting crazy, that's a reflection on me. And so we also need to do that too. Take some responsibility. So for the things that are happening, take some responsibility. I'm not saying take all responsibility. And then begin to educate myself. And one thing is to check how I really feel about this child and their people. You know what? Not just this child. How do I feel about their mama? How do I feel about their daddy? I think that's the real check. Because, you know, we can love the little Black children. Oh, yes, indeed. We love the little children. But do I love their daddy? And do I love their mama? And so, because they're going to pick up that, mm-hmm. and that they may react to what they're feeling about me, this mm-hmm. undercurrent. Remember, I'm a foundational person. Why don't I stop there?
We have about 1 minute. Would you like to ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, please. Good. If there's no other, please do.
I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, Miss Juan.
Oh, it's yeah. No,
yeah, please do, because I was rushing because I didn't know how much time I had.
No, I guess I think I want my classroom space to be a space where we see rebels, allies, and interrupters. And I want to encourage resistance and protest. And I think what you said was really eloquent. I'm just trying to figure out what it looks like in the classroom. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, one of the things I love is that the journey. You know, I just personally know that there are no steps to anything.
We have about 10 seconds and they're going to whisk us away.
If you want it, you will find it. So just keep doing what you're doing now. Reading and being a part of groups. This is a wonderful support group to help figure that out.
That's perfect. Thank you, everybody. I don't know like, when it's going to happen.
Yeah, just like before, the three of us will transition and you'll get 3 additions to your crew.
Thanks for your great questions.
Thank you. Your great question.
Justice coming in now.
Hi. I feel like we're speed dating.
Right, exactly.
So I have the great honor of bringing with me and introducing to you Miss Elois Freeman, who is this is an all new group, Miss Freeman, and Miss Freeman is a Nashville historian, has decades, I can say, of experience and wisdom to share with us. Community elder, educator, minister of justice, and just a joy to be with. So I won't talk too long. Please jump right in with your questions so we don't run out of time.
As a reminder, this chunk of time together is also 20 minutes, so we'll be together till 12:30.
Thank you,
Thank
madam.
you.
We start slow and then we get really packed at the end.
While somebody's warming up, you called me the community elder, so I will have to say that my gray hair, my white hair, gray hair is the testimony to that. And I even have it out so the people, because I love head covering, so usually I have my hair covered. So you gave me a new name, and then I've got to do testimony to the fact that community elder.
Yes, you deserve it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Freeman, in the video we watched, you mentioned the work that you're doing in the city of Nashville, I believe, with Westwood Baptist Church. Is that correct?
Yes.
Just expound a little bit on what that work is and who you work with and what you do in the city.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask your name, please?
Yes, I'm Angela Frederick. I work in Williamson County Schools.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, Angela, thank you for asking, and so glad you're here. So Westwood Baptist Church is in North Nashville. We are located directly across from one of the high schools, one of the comprehensive high schools, Pearl Cone Magnet School. I forgot now which magnet they are. I think they are music and business magnet. And so Westwood also has just celebrated its 100th years of service. We have seen the faithfulness of our Heavenly Father to us over that time, and we have been faithful in our service to our people, just as people. And so I am actually a native of that area and grew up in Westwood Baptist Church during I was born at the late 40s, 49. So from 40s, 50s, and 60s, I grew up there, and then graduated from Fisk University and left Nashville, returned to Nashville and North Nashville in 2000. And began ministry work at the church. It was in 2000 that I left the classroom because of a call to the gospel of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Yahshua. So my ministry work right now is what I am called a minister of justice. And so I do liaison work, community work, bringing the church and the community together. Since the pandemic, we have been really focused on what we call we were called by our Heavenly Father to provide ongoing support to people who needed it. And actually it started really right after the tornado and then with the pandemic. So we began by offering and finding people who don't have other streams of support and providing food cards, referral service to help with rent, things that we don't do, we refer. That has expanded to, we partner with Second Harvest, and we've been doing Thursday food distributions. Up until the end of the year, we were distributing about 1,000 boxes a week of food to our community members. Some would come to the site, and then we would load our vans and take another 150 out to people who couldn't come to us. We are partnering with the school even now in that distribution. And we're working with other partners from Family and Children's Service and Meharry. So our partnerships are with these other entities that are serving North Nashville to really do what I guess you could call holistic service to people. Westwood Baptist Church is also blessed to have several properties that have been donated to us and that we've purchased to maintain some control and opportunity to provide reasonable rents within that community. And so that's another thing. We've had over the years a daycare center and summer programs where we do education programs, blood drive. So Westwood is really connected with serving our Heavenly Father by serving his people. And those were some of the ways we do that. Oh, and right now we're doing an art history project. Can I be heard? Yeah, we're doing an art history project where we are documenting the history of our church and our community over these past 100 years.
That's fabulous. Everyone is on mute, so you're not getting the feedback, but can you see our faces or are you on one screen?
I can see your face.
Okay, great.
I can see your face. I don't see everybody else's. Okay.
Oh, just me?
That's all
Oh, I'll be sure and communicate then more to you. You gotten thumbs up and head nods. Yes, we love your
okay.
voice.
I could be able to see everybody. No, I don't see that. I just see you. That's why I don't know who's here. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Lois, do you have a button in your top right corner that says view?
Child, honey, I don't know. Look, I'm doing well to be this much. Child, you're going to ask me to try to do something.
We better not lose you.
Not here, so I don't know.
It's fine. Alicia looks great.
Ms.
Want to use
Freeman.
this title. Eli, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I'm good.
Minister of Justice Freeman, and that's how I'm going to refer to you, which I think is just the coolest thing ever. In your conversation that we saw before this, one of my favorite things that you said, and it just didn't get talked about because I felt like it just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And you said, let's be careful about how we're pushing kids right now. Because there was this conversation about like, hey, we're still on remote, we're still doing these things, but we can still push kids. And I don't think that Jim or Ricky were saying, to push them, too hard, but there was something about that. So I was curious with you, when you're dealing with kids. I grew up, I went to MLK. I played for Doc Shelton, and so he had us running around that neighborhood. So I've run by that church a ton. I've worked at Pearl Cone quite a bit with a after-school program that I did when I was at Father Ryan. When you're working with kids, when you're serving kids, and all of us are serving kids right now who are under an enormous amount of stress, can you talk a little bit about what you were getting at there when you were saying, hey, let's be careful, let's be cautious about how we're pushing kids right now?
Okay, thank you for asking. Did you say Michael?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, see, I'm better. I can see it down at the bottom. Great. Okay. So Michael, thank you for asking. When I make these comments, I really make it on the basis of what I hear from the children and also what I observe. So in a time of rigor and relevance, and there was another R, especially, so this is even before whatever's happening now. Just too much pressure has been put on children. I mean, that's not even a debatable point. So what happens now when you are detached from human contact, from your teacher, from your peers? And one of the things I hear students saying, now they miss school because they really miss their friends. That's what they miss. And I'm just telling you what I've heard. So all of that has to be understood. The problem, I think, is that teachers and administrators have very real pressures on you. Personal pressures, just like everybody else, just trying to adjust to this, but also whatever the requirements are from the curriculum and your administrators. And sometimes that just gets conveyed to me in an unhealthy way. And so when I spoke to that, I think I said it because I guess it's just what I've kind of heard. Like, I think I told the story in one of the other groups I was talking to. I think she was a 9 or 10-year-old, and she was talking about it's just so hard, and the teachers are so mean, and so, and I think I even kind of pressed that, and I think she was talking about not even to her, but maybe to some of the other children who weren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that came out of that, probably that and some other relevant conversations where they're trying to balance this thing. And then teachers got the need to make sure they get this stuff done. And we just have to be sensitive to that. I think by being sensitive to it, it can help to work around it.
Thank you. Eli, you ready?
I was just going to ask, first of all, I see your historic connection to North Nashville. My mother-in-law went to Pearl High, so I was wondering, do you say Pearl High till the day that I die, just like she always says, but Pearl High till the day I die?
Right, I'm a Pearl High graduate. You don't get graduated.
I had a suspicion. Number two, I was reading an article where you're quoted a lot about gentrification in North Nashville, and just wondering, how you're continuing to root yourself and ground yourself into the historic nature of the neighborhood, and save some things, right, in North, or and partnering with other organizations like Gideon's Army, trying to save, you know, some of that historic Black ownership in North Nashville and identity that has been lost, whether it was through the I-40 corridor or has been lost with the current influx of gentrification in that area. So I was just wondering if you could speak to that. I'd really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Eli. So Gideon's Army is actually one of our partners for many, many years. And, you know, that's a real challenging one. I think I was sharing that even, I can't even remember whether it was this breakout room or not, but I think it was. But we're talking, yeah, because we were talking about the ministries of the church. We are blessed to have properties. Our church is blessed to have a number of properties around us. And so one of the ways that we work on that, and we still have a great potential for growth, is taking these properties, which are, you know, are old single family, and actually some are multi-family residences, and providing reasonable rents. So that's one way we can do that, but we can in any way accommodate for the need, which means for us, that's a great opportunity to see how to take some of these properties that we have and renovate and be able to have some multi-use. Another thing that even is my desire as the work that I do is to find ways that we can partner with even those who are the builders, and to, you know, find some compassionate folk and some folks who can recognize that everything doesn't have to be an Airbnb. That there are people who are being neglected and need a place to live. That's actually that's a major part of our prayer for me, that we can, because hey, there are residences all around you. I think, that's what I said. I think I said it was a sin and a shame somewhere, that you literally have all of this building and you have people who can't find somewhere to live that they can afford. That's a sin and a shame, and we really need to deal with that. So we face it. And we do the partnering, and then, like I say, we're blessed to be able to have some opportunity to do the tangible things to help people with housing, and maybe to even educate about the need for what we can do creatively. One of the things that I'm fully convinced of, North Nashville is really, oh God, help us Jesus. North Nashville is really the only Black community remaining in Nashville, Tennessee. And that's really a shame. That when I was growing up in, I think you said your mother-in-law, when we were at Pearl High, God forgive me, we were at Pearl High, you had 4 high schools. You had Cameron, South Nashville, you had East Nashville, Meigs, and you had the, the county school, Haynes, and then Pearl was the 4th, to accommodate the Black communities on the 4 sides of town. If you will look at the communities surrounding all of those other schools, they are already almost totally gentrified. And North Nashville is becoming. That's another sin and a shame, that you have a city that is removing the large majority of the Black people in it while we talk anti-racism and whatever we're talking. So I'm always a little, you can say I'm getting ready to get very passionate about this one. This is the last bastion of a place where Black people can live within the confines of this city. And so we are working very hard and praying and listening to what we can do to have this to remain, and even do more to provide opportunities for affordable housing for people who are Black, but then all people. Someone said, if you deal with the problem with Black people, you can deal with everybody else's problem.
Yeah, good stuff. Eli's teasing you in the chat. He said he's going to tell on you that you called it Pearl Cone and not Pearl.
Oh, I know. He knew it. Oh, did you hear me say? Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm going to tell. I'm going to get to that alumni committee. I'm telling.
You already know.
I'm telling.
That, oh my God, that's an unforgivable sin, isn't it, Eli? Oh my gosh, yeah.
Does anybody have a different question, something from the video, or do we want to pursue this line a little further? Yes.
If we can pursue this. Hi, Ms. Freeman. I'm Claire. I run a literacy program called Nashville Book Connection, and we get new diverse books in kids' hands to take and keep at home. And one of the, a question that you just brought to mind, while we talk, all of this is happening around us. And I'm, in our last session we had with Dr. Gibbs, he mentioned something about how, anti-racism is not a political issue. And that is very true. And it should be devoid of politics. The work that we all do should be devoid of politics. And it is still, it's all, our Venn diagram is probably too much political, which ends up, building those walls and driving people away if they hear, if they associate it in a negative way from their politics. And I'm guilty of the same thing. And I do think about what we do a lot of talking, and some people see the talk as doing, but man, there's a whole lot more to be doing, and you just need to, move forward. And I do, I don't know if I have a specific question necessarily, as I'd love to hear you speak more to that. I know we have 2 minutes left, so if someone else needs to get in there with one last one, please do. But I'm interested in hearing more about what you see on the ground, what you need us to do to make it more doing while we keep talking.
Well, thank you so much, dear. And I'm so glad for what you're doing. That's something. I think that's one of the big things is just make sure that we're doing while we talk, because what each of one of us has to do is different. One of the things that I always would encourage people like you and people who are connected to agencies and resource of your own is find somebody different on the ground. And let me say what I mean, so that I've been doing this community related work for about 20 years, since I've been back in Nashville. I didn't say this, my teaching was in Chicago area and Boston. I was in Chicago 10 years and Boston 20, then back to Nashville 2 years, 20 years. So I've been involved with community work for 20 years. And the way it works is that you've got key nonprofits who get all the money. The folks on the ground, those of us like my church and other churches and other people who have a passion and have a nonprofit, we go on what we call God's grace and your own resources, and you do it. You do the work. You do the work. One of the things that you can find some people like that who are not, I don't say don't give to the big people, because they need it, but find someone who is really grassroots that you can support, because we can do so much more if we get some additional support. That's one thing.
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt you, but we have to say goodbye.
That's the point. Good. Thank you.
Process of the actual leader, but if you start with the student